Hello and welcome to Hoop 7's Basketball Hustle for another week. And after this marathon season, Cody, we're 2 weeks away from the finals starting, 2 weeks away from the regular season ending. I'm sure there's some teams that can't wait for that 2 weeks to be up. And I'm sure there's 4 more teams that can't wait for the finals to start. I'm not sure we are quite locked away on who those 4 teams will be yet, so we'll chat about that on the show. We're getting some interesting performances from the teams that aren't in finals contention. We've now got the WNBL Championship decided, and we'll talk about that game too, which was quite dramatic in Perth, Cody. And the NBL 1 West season is underway as well. We'll talk about your thoughts on the Warwick Senators and what you saw as well. So plenty to get through on this week's show. We hope to bring you a guest as well. We hope it's the scoring machine. If not the scoring machine, we'll make sure we find someone, Cody. So we'll bring you somebody this week. But let's get stuck into it all. I'm Chris Pike, but the man you have all tuned in to hear from, the former Illawarra Hawks and Sydney Kings power forward, the Warwick Senators captain, Cody Ellis. How you doing this week?
Good, mate. Good. Look, another big round of NBL, but look, it's starting to get to that point of the year where I think everyone's ready for finals, and because there's not really going to be a whole lot of movement, kind of making that top 4, I think everyone's pretty ready for the finals to come around the corner.
Especially if you're one of those bottom teams. I think you can't wait for it to end. I mean, you were lucky enough to not be in that position during your career where you were preparing for finals, but you also were a part of a couple of teams that were well and truly done by this point of the season. How tough is it to keep playing out a season when you know that you're not really playing for anything?
Oh, it's tough. It's tough. And, as much as, it's a professional sport and you should be playing through the end, those last couple games, especially when there's no chance, it's tough. But at the same time, you get that bit of free rein.
You can play with freedom.
You do. Yeah. And some of these teams are starting to show that in patches, and obviously some guys coming off contract. So you're trying to prove that you want to be re-signed, whether it's the team you're in or someone else.
Absolutely. We'll go through some of those teams and what they might be doing and trying to get out of these last 2 weeks as well as we go on, Cody. But we'll focus on the finals-bound teams first. I'll go through the results that we saw in round 19, and we saw some interesting results. Going way back to Thursday night, and the South East Melbourne Phoenix, not for the first time this season, and to be fair, it's probably in double figures the amount of times they've done this now, shot themselves in the foot against Melbourne United, and their finals chances went with it. Melbourne United got the win in the throwdown, 90-88. Wasn't pretty at RAC Arena, but the Perth Wildcats didn't lose for a 4th straight time and got that win over the New Zealand Breakers. Tasmania JackJumpers had to do it tough against the Cairns Taipans. It wasn't until Scotty Machado went down injured that they got on top, but they kept their season alive with the 87-80 victory. This was an ugly one. The Illawarra Hawks, though, they looked impressive. The equal highest score of the season they put up, 108 winners over the Brisbane Bullets, 77. Also Saturday night, 36ers actually made the Sydney Kings work for this one, but the Kings made it 11 straight, winning 84-77. Then Sunday, South East Melbourne Phoenix. The final margin flatters the Breakers a little bit. The Phoenix were a bit more dominant than that suggests, winning 99-89. And then also on Sunday, this one blew out as well, especially in the second half. Melbourne United 92 over the Cairns Taipans 63. And Monday night, a bit of a free hit for both teams who are out of the running. Brisbane Bullets beat the Adelaide 36ers 93-85, even without Robert Franks. What are your major takeaways before we dig a little bit deeper into that, Cody?
Look, there's not a whole lot to take away from this weekend. Teams that should have got it done really did. The Phoenix are probably the only ones that, just, again, dropped the ball. Yep. Like you said, it's probably double-figure times now that we've said, look, they've been in that chance to win an important game, and they've just let it slip through their fingers. All those games come down to 1 or 2 possessions throughout that whole game. Yep. And they've lost pretty much all of those games. They have. And, you win half of those, all of a sudden you're probably in the 4 right now.
Well, they're still only 2 games out, so that's how close it is for them.
It is. And like I said, it's plays here and there throughout the game. It's very rarely the very end of a game where you actually lose it. There's plays throughout all 4 quarters that are super important to that end result.
And I think Simon Mitchell's pointed out offensive rebounds and the turnovers. Those were the 2 areas that cost them in that game against Melbourne and the week before as well. And it's tough to win if you're giving up points off turnovers and giving up second chance points.
Yeah, and Melbourne are very good at that. They've got some big bodies that are really good rebounders, and then they've got some great defenders that do cause you to speed up and turn it over. So, against a studded United team, you have to keep those things down. You have to keep those turnovers down. You have to play at your own pace. You have to box out. But yeah, like I said, those little things they hurt you.
Is the top 4 set? Can you see any hope for the JackJumpers? We'll set the scene a little bit. So the JackJumpers finish with a game against the New Zealand Breakers, an away game against the South East Melbourne Phoenix, and then at home to Melbourne United. They clearly have to win all 3 of those. Do you give them any hope?
Oh, look, there's a glimmer of hope, but realistically, I don't think so. It's going to come down to whether the Wildcats can, string some home wins together as well. Those 3 games that the JackJumpers have are all with loaded rosters, really. Breakers obviously underachieved this year, but on paper they're an amazing squad, and when they're firing, they're tough to play against. Phoenix again, you never know what you're going to get, unfortunately.
And they're a lot smaller against them. That's the concern against the Phoenix for Tasmania.
Yeah, they don't. Yeah, they really don't have anyone to guard their bigs. And then United, but that's going to be the last game of the year, so you don't know if they're going to rest players or what they're going to do.
Or Melbourne could be still playing for top spot. We're not quite sure.
Yep. So it's going to come down to those last couple games, but I don't think they're going to make it at all. I think the 4 is set.
So if they win all 3 of those, they get to 17 wins. So they need the Wildcats to slip up. Their percentage is a lot less than the Wildcats as well, so they need to finish with more wins than the Wildcats. So they can only afford Perth to win 1 of their last 4 games. So the Wildcats, obviously, all these games are at home. They've got the 36ers and the Taipans this week, and then they've got the Hawks and the Phoenix. It's probably not the run home that the JackJumpers would have been hoping to see for the Wildcats.
No, especially those first 2 games. Adelaide coming into here with the 40th anniversary game. The Cats should be able to get up for that, realistically. The Taipans without Machado is what we're probably going to think.
Yes.
Again, they're just a completely different team without Scott out there. Hawks, the way they're playing, that's going to be a big one. That's going to be a big test for the Cats. And then the Phoenix, again, you never know. So
the JackJumpers need the Wildcats to lose 3 of those.
Yeah, not ideal.
The Hawks is the one that you can probably see them possibly losing.
Yep.
Who else can step up to do it?
Oh, look, the Phoenix have the potential to. And again, you've probably got guys, I'm not sure of contracts, who's in and out of contract, but you've probably got guys fighting for contracts as well.
Mitch Creek might want to put another 0 on the end of his.
Well, that's it. So, I think they'll come in, nothing to lose, and try, throw some haymakers. But out of those last 2, you really couldn't see the Cats losing against Adelaide or Cairns. But again, the Cats aren't playing really good basketball at the moment.
No.
So there's a chance, but I can't see that.
I wouldn't even say that they look great against the Breakers.
No.
They were probably lucky they were playing the Breakers that night, because I'm not sure they would have beaten too many other teams the way that they played.
No, not really. They did what they needed to get the win. And again, it's seeing how important Mitch Norton is to that squad.
Absolutely.
And hopefully he can come back and get a few games under his belt before finals.
What are you hearing? How close is he? Is he any chance for this weekend?
I haven't spoken to him recently, but look, I hope so. I really hope so, because he was playing some really good basketball before he got hurt. You play really good basketball, then you get hurt, your confidence kind of takes a bit of a hit.
Yeah.
So,
and it's not like you can come straight back when you've missed the time that he has and be right at the top of your game. It takes a little bit of time to pick it back up.
It does, and we've seen that with Zay, of course.
Yep.
Where, he's been playing decent, but still not to the level that he was at before he got hurt. And a guy like Nordo, who is all effort, I think he will get back fairly quick, but it's still going to take a game or 2 for him to get into the full swing of
He
things.
relies on a big tank as well. That takes a game or 2 to get back to.
Oh, for sure. His wind will be knocked out in that first few games.
So I reckon the top 3 are locked in. They're not going to miss the finals. It's just a matter of what order we get now. And it's probably worked out fantastic that the Kings and the Hawks, there's still a chance to finish top if United slips up, but they're probably more likely to finish 2nd and 3rd and to end up playing each other in the semi-finals. And it turns out nicely that they're playing each other twice in the run home. So if you look at the Hawks, they play the Kings this Thursday night, then they come to Perth to play the Wildcats next week, then they finish in Sydney against the Kings, and obviously the Kings have got those 2 games against the Hawks. In between, they play the 36ers at home, and then they go up to Cairns to play the Taipans.
Yep.
Which one of those 2 finishes the higher, whether it's first or second? Who finishes higher out of those 2?
Oh, look, that's a tough one. Look, Kings got just over the line in their game this weekend. They did what they needed to. United, again, not playing great basketball, doing enough. Hawks are kind of the team that's surging right now.
Yep. Yeah, it's interesting. So the Kings are on the 11-game winning streak.
Yeah.
The Hawks have won 6 straight, but I think you're right. Sydney didn't look that great against Adelaide. So do you think the Hawks are looking the best out of them right now?
At the moment, if you had said before this weekend, it'd still be the Kings, I think. Yep. But, a bit of a speed bump this weekend for them. So at the moment, you'd probably say the Hawks are playing the best. But, Kings proved that they can get a win even with their stars not doing what they need to.
No, you're right. Adams and Martin didn't have great games, and it was probably Cooks that was the one that had the biggest game out of their stars.
Yep, and that's good. The fact that the supporting cast can get it done against the teams that they need to. And if you have guys like Martin having a down game, it's good to have it against those teams that aren't really pushing for that top spot, rather than come finals and have those down games. Look, man, it really is a toss of the coin. I can't pick it.
Do you think Melbourne finishes first?
I think so, purely from what they've got left.
The thing they've got in their favour is they've got the best percentage, so they would need to finish on a win less than the other teams to drop below. So that's almost another win for them. So they're already on 18 wins, and it's going to be tough to see them lose. They probably have to lose at least 2 of those last 3, and they've got Brisbane, they've got Cairns, and they've got Tasmania.
Yeah, and I can't see them really dropping any of those. I think they'll get it done for the rest of the year and finish on top, which is probably where they belong. I think throughout the whole season they've set the bar pretty high, and Kings and Hawks have kind of made late pushes. Yeah, Cats are always there, but I think United has been the best team all year.
Yeah, I don't know if their absolute best perhaps is as good as what Sydney and the Hawks can do, but what Melbourne does that those other 2 teams can't do is that they make themselves really hard to play against. So the other teams just can't reach their top level against them, which is probably why they probably still deserve to be just about favourites, because even if you're the Kings and the Hawks and you go into a final series against Melbourne firing, it's going to be tough to play your best against them.
Yeah, it is. And, I think we're still yet to see all the United players firing at the same time as well. Yeah. Agata's been not as good as he was to start the season. Goulding's had some big games, but he's had some down ones as well. Chul has kind of put himself down a few spots in that MVP race. He hasn't been the same.
And then you've got guys like Huck Porty who have got better, and they've added Bubba. So some guys have dropped off a little bit, but other guys have stepped up, which is and Shea Ili. I mean, he's got better and better as the year's gone on.
Oh, absolutely. And Shea's going to give you what he does, and you know what you're going to get out of him.
Jack White too.
Well, that's it. Jack White has been really good, and I think he's gotten better throughout the season with confidence, just building. Obviously, at the start of the year, you kind of saw him a bit hesitant, which is totally understandable, coming back from that injury. But look, they are stacked. They've got one of the deepest rosters. You got guys like Newley and Barlow coming off as 7th, 8th, 9th on the bench. They've certainly got enough talent there.
I want to get your thoughts on Duop Reath's game against the Bullets for the Hawks on Saturday. I know it was only against the Bullets, but he had a really quiet game last time they played Brisbane, and Robert Franks got the better of him. I don't know if he could have played a better game than what he played on Saturday. He finished with 28 points, 11 rebounds, and he shot 13 of 15 from the field. I don't know if he could have done much more, could he? That was just about the perfect game.
Yeah, it was. No, he was really good, and it's what you get out of Duop, and I think that needs to be what he gives you. Again, he got the ball. He touched the ball, and he was a difference maker, even in a 30-point game. He's a big reason why they blew out that game. And he's so talented, and on pretty much any other team, you'd see him shooting 15 shots minimum every game.
Yep.
Whereas, on this team it's got a lot of guys that probably need the ball. He doesn't get as many shots, but when you're as efficient as that, then it's tough.
I just think he was extra motivated for that matchup with Franks. I remember after the last game, I asked Robert Franks how proud he was about being able to play well against Duop and get the better of that matchup, and I'm sure that Duop was pretty determined to bounce back, and he couldn't have done it any better.
Oh, for sure. And you've got to be pretty happy with yourself when a player of Frank's level is happy that he plays so well against you. But then it's that added bit of incentive when you play next time. And he certainly showed up ready to go and showed us what he can do.
The other thing I wanted to mention about Duop was post game. I noticed on his wrist tape he had the initials AR written on his wrist, and that was obviously for Aliyah Riak. And I wasn't planning on talking to him about it, but I did ask him about that, and just to confirm that it's what it was. And he said that we've talked about Aliyah and then the tragedy, and he's in our thoughts, and it's a devastating thing that happened, but. It's nice to see that Duop is remembering him and honouring him and playing for him. And he talked about how he was like a little brother to him because they grew up in a similar part of Perth and they would have known each other very well. And I just thought that was a nice touch. Yeah, for sure. And he's had that written on there for a couple of weeks now. I think I noticed it probably the round after it happened. Look, you're right. I remember when I first heard the news, and then about an hour later, the Hawks game started. And watching that and wondering if he knew about it, and just trying to pick up and see how he's playing. Yeah, because that would have been on the Sunday morning. They had the first game on the Sunday. They had that first game, that early game on Sunday. But look, and they were obviously very close. Grew up playing together around the corner from where we are right now. Look, that's awesome, and it's very good to see. I like that. I like the touch. I wasn't sure if I should bring it up or not, but I was glad that I did. The other thing, the NBL is doing a lot of great things over the last few years, and we've seen how big the Next Stars program has taken off. The other thing they've done is provide a spot on each roster to bring in a player from Asia, and we're seeing it take off right now. And this weekend was the best example of it. I think Joe Chi played his best weekend for the Phoenix. Big Lou with the Bullets had his best two games as well. And Kai Sotto, especially on Monday night against the Bullets, played his best game as well, put up 21 points. It's just great to see these guys getting to play at a level in their home countries that they probably wouldn't get to and develop the way that they have. Sure, it's been really good, and like you said, this round was certainly a showcase for all of them. Yeah, it was funny watching that game yesterday with Big Soto. Yes,
I was talking to the wife, and she was wondering how tall he was. I was like, he's like. I think he's 7'2".
He's 7'2".
He's 7'2", but he got made look small, right? And,
Lou's 7'5".
And I had to explain to Lauren that Big Lou he's a monster, and he made Kai look tiny. It doesn't help that Kai's probably a bit skinnier than him as well. But no, look, I think it's really good, and it's something that has helped the league with its viewers and all that, because you've got all those countries now tuning in, and it's awesome. It's great, and I think they've all stepped up and proven that they can play on this stage. Yeah, Kai Sotto talked afterwards about how it was a bit strange for him to have a guy bigger than him and a guy that made him feel small. He said he felt small out there, which wouldn't happen to him very often. No. How have you seen his development this year? To me, I think he's coming along nicely, but he's probably still not ready to make the next jump. No. If I was to give him advice, and he's not going to listen to my advice, but I would come back to Adelaide next year, continue my development, nominate for the 2023 NBA draft, and I would have every expectation I could be a first round pick if I did that. If I nominate this year, I might be lucky to get picked in the top 100, and then you might have blown your chance. But what do you think? Yeah, I think you're right. I think you're spot on. He's certainly grown this year from where he started to even the game yesterday. Yeah, he's been really good, but those baby steps are happening, and I think he does need to come back for his development and even just confidence. I think is a big thing. He certainly needs to come back, because you're right. If he declared this year, I don't think he'd get picked up. No. Got to finish that tattoo as well. Well, that's it. Yeah, I know. Is that fresh ink? Jeez. The other one I wanted to touch on quickly was Ousmane Dieng. He looks like a different You wouldn't recognise him if you watched a game at the start of the season to watching him now. He looks like a player that's ready to
to dominate. He can do absolutely anything on the floor, and to be able to do that at 6'10", it's pretty impressive. I'm almost beginning to think he's a lottery pick right now.
Yeah, he's getting there. He's getting there. I think, again, you would just seeing him grow with confidence. It's one of those things that not a whole lot of those guys on the Breakers team are firing at all. So he's coming out and saying, all right, well, I'm going to go get mine. He's certainly shown a lot. He's shown a lot more than I thought at the start of the year on what he had. But I still think he's got a long way to go, for sure. Top 10, I'm not 100% sure. I'm not 100% sold on it.
Yep.
But yeah, look, he's been really good these past few weeks, and his confidence and his shots coming along, and for someone that tall and long to have the handle he does, and plays slow and under control.
Yep.
So it's really fun to watch.
The one more thing I've loved about him is that he's actually playing defence now. He was horrible defensively early, and he couldn't handle the physicality. He's now picking off guys, he's getting the passing lane and stealing, and also blocking shots, and that's a good sign too. Yeah,
and that's just him evolving and understanding the game more. You know, he's so young that, especially growing up, defence is never taught properly.
No.
And
especially when you're that talented, you don't have to worry about it.
No, not at all. You get hidden in the back of a zone.
You didn't have to play it in under 14, did you?
No. I was just bigger than everyone. That was my advantage. But yeah, no, look, even for myself, it's only been in the past few years that I've really keyed in on defence. But it is a big and important part of the game, and if he can flick that switch, he's got all the weapons to be a really good defender. He reads it really well, he's long, he's athletic, and I think we're starting to see that.
We'll keep going, Cody. I wanted to get your thoughts on the bottom four teams. We'll talk more about the Phoenix and the JackJumpers in coming weeks, but the four teams that have been out of finals contention for a while, I want to get your thoughts on if they should stick with their plan and bring a lot of their group back together and keep on the similar path and just top it up a little bit, or if they should virtually blow things up and start from scratch. Let's start with the New Zealand Breakers, because I think naturally when you take out Basson and Dieng, who will be in the NBA, you start again. I can't imagine Peyton Seaver coming back. You wouldn't imagine. Jason Randall certainly won't be back. What do they do? And how much does things change for them when they actually get to go back home?
Yeah, it's a tough one, because, again, coming into the season, I thought they were a top four team with their roster. And they probably should have been. But, again, like, lots of stuff comes into play there. They had so many injuries to start the year. Away from home from pre-season till now still. That really takes its toll. And I think they need to keep probably their core group together. But you're right, like imports wise, I think Seaver's probably gone. Randall's gone. And then you got...
Basson was the third import, so he's naturally gone.
Him and Dieng are probably go to the draft. So that's four pieces that you can add. I don't know if you're going to pick up another two guys like Basson and Dieng as next stars, but
they've got a good record though now with next stars. If you add in RJ Hampton, they've done a really good job.
They have, and you know, with their ownership, they've got that reach now. So look, I think they've got some of the best recruiting power in the league, just with the guys in charge.
Finn Delaney is the interesting one. Do you offer him a big contract, or do you potentially let him walk?
I don't know. He's had a down year. Look, last year he was really good.
I think he was unlucky last year not to be all first team.
Yeah, I agree.
He's been nothing close to that level.
Not even close. No, not even close. Whether he's been playing with an injury or if he's just not being played in that role that makes him so successful, it's hard to tell, because he kind of he looks like he's been running around with the chicken with his head cut off right now. And with someone with his talent, it's been hard to watch. So, look, I think you want to do everything in your power to keep him, but you don't want to blow the budget at the same time.
Might be a good thing for him too, to get a fresh start potentially.
Just depends on, I guess, where and what teams would be interested. So.
Yeah, we want to follow. The Adelaide 36ers are fascinating. So I thought they had a really good looking roster. I thought their Australian contingent coming into the season was just about the best across the league. When they added in Mitch McCarron, they still had Sunday Dech. They obviously had Daniel Johnson and Cam Bairstow, and if Isaac Humphries was healthy, they just needed their two imports to deliver what they hoped they would. None of that's really happened, and it's been a season that's been pretty poor. Yeah. At the same time, CJ Bruton didn't pick anyone on this roster except for Cam Bairstow and Hiram Harris, and they've probably been just about their two best players. So I have a feeling there's going to be a lot of change this off-season in Adelaide.
Yeah, I think so. And I'm not sure how many of those guys are actually on contract. I don't think there's too many.
I think from memory it's only McCarron, Sunday Dech and DJ.
Yeah. So, look, DJ's had a down year from his standards. Macca has finally, towards the end of the season, been more aggressive, like what we've wanted out of him, and obviously what CJ's wanted out of him. Sunday's been Sunday. He's been really good. Harris, again, he's been awesome, especially late in the season, just doing all the little things. I think he's been a game changer for them in these past few games. But look, I think imports probably haven't been up to what we thought they were going to be, us and probably the Sixers organisation. Yeah. But look, that happens. No Humphreys has been a killer because then they don't really have that big bull in there. No. Kai has taken his time, or not taken his time, but he's taken a while to get into the rhythm and understand how this game's reffed and how it's played. He's been really good now.
And really, if he had been behind Humphreys, that wouldn't have been a big problem.
No.
But because Humphreys was gone, that was sort of exacerbated a little bit.
Right, and I don't know how much CJ wanted to play him early, or if he wanted to just ease him into it, which is totally fair with him being so young and newly introduced to the league. And then Bairstow just unlucky. He's been so unlucky with injuries. It's tough to see because look what happened when he's out there. They're a force, and he was unreal. So, look, I think CJ's probably going to want to pick his own team, but there's certainly some guys in there that you want to re-sign.
Cairns Taipans are an interesting one too. I think it was only 2 weeks ago we were talking about how good it was to see them playing so well and finally finding their feet under 40, but he was anything but happy with that game on Sunday against Melbourne United, and he didn't like the second half in Tasmania either and how they responded once Machado went down injured. It's interesting. I think they still need to try to build around Bull Kowal and Keanu Pinder. Beyond that, I'm not sure how many other guys come back. Majuk Deng is certainly still signed, but I'm not sure how many others are coming back.
Yeah, I'm not sure. And as much as I've loved McCall's game this year, he just doesn't do it for them.
No.
He's a really good player, don't get me wrong. And at the start of the year, he was probably one of my favourite imports to watch, just purely from his energy. But he just...
Even though some of his numbers look okay at the end of a game, he's so inefficient in everything he does.
Yeah, he is.
To get 15 points, it's bloody hard work for him to get those 15 points.
Well, it is, and he's taken it to the rack, and he's not getting calls, but he's
also doesn't get his teammates involved, does he? Once he gets the ball, it's almost like Xavier Radden-Mays, what we talked about. He just dribbles the hell out of it.
Yeah, and he does a bit, and that's obviously been his game, and that's what's made him successful. So that's a tough one, and you inject him back into the lineup, and then they don't play as well as they have been. Like we said with Nordo and the Cats, we've seen how important a healthy Machado is for that squad. First half against the JackJumpers, they were really good.
He was just getting his groove back, wasn't he?
He was, and Cairns ride his back like that. And I think that with him going down, he went out and they were up 10.
I think so. Yeah, they were, and then they just got blown away completely after that.
They did, and that's just that court general that they don't have, and that's something that McCall's got to learn.
He's not a point guard though, is he?
He's not a point guard. So that makes it tough. But
just touching on that though, with Machado, the emotional toll it took on the team was significant. We haven't heard what the injury is or the seriousness of it, but 40 was emotional about it. His teammates were emotional straight away. It seems like it could be something pretty serious.
Yeah, and I hope not. I haven't heard much or anything about it, but you never want to see someone injured, let alone someone that's been in your program and ingrained in that program for a while now. So, look, thoughts out, and I'm hoping that it's nothing serious, but I don't think we'll see him again this year.
Then there's the Brisbane Bullets. They're the great enigmas of this season because they can still play great, and their performance on Monday night with Franks going out of the team was really good, and they had a lot of guys step up. Patterson and Cody provided some good leadership, but there was Dieng, there was Tom Digba, Jack Salt even had some good moments as well. They had a lot of guys step up in that game, but 2 days earlier they lost by 30 to the Hawks and they were horrible. That's been sort of the story of their season. They've lost some games from unlosable positions as well that they've thrown away, especially that one against the Kings. I don't know. I don't know. If you're James Duncan, do you want to start again, or is there enough there to continue to build on?
I think there's enough there. There's certainly enough there, and you take a guy like Nathan Sobey out of your lineup, and it completely changes.
Yep.
And then you take Big Ty out as well.
Sure.
He was really good for them early.
You lose your starting centre and your starting point guard.
Well, exactly, and that's two big pieces to any team. Yep. From more reports, the club is really high on Ty, and rightfully so, because he's been really good, and his growth over the past probably year and a half has been awesome. It's been really good to see. Nate Sobey coming off, a Boomers stint where he got to train and play against some of the best players in the world for a period of time, and he came into the season pretty good, and then gets hurt and is sidelined for the rest of the season, which is frustrating. Jace Caddy's had to step up a bit and start putting points back on the board, which he'd gone away from a bit. I think he'd become more of that facilitator, but it's good to see him firing again. Patterson
seems to enjoy playing against Adelaide, doesn't he?
He does. Yeah, he does. Yeah, look, Patterson, he's a beast. I think you probably bring him back and hope he comes back in decent shape again. Digbo has been really good these past couple of games. We're saying it the same thing over and over, but confidence is just starting to ooze from him. And again, he's just kind of been let off the leash and here, go play basketball.
Is he similar to Soto, where if he comes back for a second year, he could be ready for the NBA this time next year, but it might be 12 months too early for him right now?
Yeah, I think so. I think if he declared now, it would be a bit of a mistake. I don't think he'd get picked up. So, I think it would be beneficial for him to come back and play with this confidence that he's got now, because he could make an impact, especially on that Bullets team. Deng's had some good games, again, stepped up. But look, I don't think you change too much. Isaiah Moss is...
You can clearly upgrade on that third import spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so that's a tough one. You hope you get Franks back, but...
maybe an import point guard is what they need.
Possibly.
It takes the pressure off Sobey to be the main ball handler a little bit.
And kind of have him and Jace play off the ball and be those scoring threats. Yeah, I think that's a really good point. So, look, you don't throw the house away here. I think you've got a really good core group. And I think there's lots to work with. I think, again, they just got unlucky this season with injuries, and losing two of your starters is never good.
From what you've seen, does James Duncan look like he's the right man to be leading them too?
Look, I think we probably need another year to tell. It's always hard to tell first-time coaches after their first season, especially with teams that they probably didn't necessarily have too much input into.
It's interesting. It was probably CJ that had the biggest input putting that Brisbane team together,
Yeah.
and then he ends up coaching a team that he had no input putting together.
Yep, exactly. So, look, you obviously give him another chance, and it's hard to sack a coach, especially a first-year coach, after you lose two of your starters mid-season.
Well, do all those coaches come back? Dan Shamir at the Breakers, CJ Bruton at the 36ers, Adam Ford at the Taipans, and Duncan at the Bullets. Do they all come back?
I think so. Not sure about the Dan Shamir one, but again, they've played on the road for 2 straight years now.
Yeah.
So
you kind of feel like he deserves a chance to at least coach a normal
season. Exactly. So, we'll see. But I think they all probably deserve at least another crack at it.
Okay, Cody, we haven't got our votes in the Damo Award or the Redditch Award just yet, because we'll wait until round 19 officially finishes and we'll get that to you as soon as we can. But we can decide our round 19 winner of the Galen Award for the best team man in the NBL. I actually had a little bit of a tough time to be inspired this week a little bit. I've actually gone with a couple of coach nominations, first of all. Scott Roth felt that Jared Bairstow was the difference maker for his team in the second half, especially with his hustle and offensive rebounding for the JackJumpers against the Taipans, so I've thrown him in there. Simon Mitchell nominated Owen Foxwell as his MVP of his team in their win against the Breakers as well on Sunday. And he took a little shot at some of the criticism he copped from playing him against Melbourne United a few days earlier, and he was really happy with what he got out of the 18-year-old. So I thought I'd throw him in the mix too, because it's not easy to come out as an 18-year-old and throw yourself against the guys that he did against Melbourne. And he held his own against, Daly and Shayili and Bubba and Golding, and then he did the same against the Breakers, and he played against Seaver and Basson and the like, and he did pretty well. So I thought I'd throw him in the mix. And then we've got the two usual suspects, and Antonius Cleveland had another cracking game for the Hawks against the Bullets. Not only did he produce a lot, but he also shut down Lamar Patterson like we haven't seen Lamar shut down, I think, just about ever before. Yeah. I think Lamar had 3 points on 1 of 9 shooting, I think, and Cleveland was a big factor in that. And Xavier Cooks was just about back to his best, and really good for the Sydney Kings in the win that they had in Adelaide as well, and just doing all of the Xavier Cooks things. Do you want to go with one of those, Cody, or did somebody else grab your fancy?
Yeah, look, it's a tough round.
It's almost the opposite problem this round than we've had previously.
Yeah, it is. And look, one person that I will throw in there, and not necessarily just because of this weekend gone, but Hiram Harris. I think,
absolutely.
Over the last couple of weeks, has probably been unlucky not to get a nod in this award, purely for the fact that some of those top 4 teams that were getting big time wins had guys stepping up to the plate. Look, I thought Bairstow was really good. He's shown glimpses, but I don't think he's really kind of solidified his spot in that rotation yet.
Well, he has some DNPs from time to time.
Yeah, and it's tough for a guy. He's not an offensive threat by any means, but he does all the little hustle stuff. So that's a tough one.
He did what he could against Jawai though. He tried to hold his ground as much as he could.
Yeah, exactly, and that's not an easy feat for anyone, let alone an undersized 4-man really.
You spent a couple of weeks training with the Taipans. How did you go in practice against them?
Thankfully, I didn't have to guard Nate too many times.
Okay.
That was Fab Kristlovic that got to do that. Yep. So I was in there guarding Lousy a few times. Nate is not someone that you want to be trying to stop when he's back to the basket, because it's a no mean feat. So look, I think he was really good. Again, Foxwell was awesome. Just, again, energy. I don't like that Mitchell's getting criticism for that, because you know what? The guys that are earning all this money are not proving that they deserve to actually play.
And he didn't look out of his depth.
No, he didn't.
He held his own.
No, he did. And I thought he was really good against some world-class players or world-class point guards, really, in that Melbourne game. Didn't back down, didn't look like an 18-year-old. He looked like he'd been there and done that. So that was really good. Cleveland just being Cleveland. This is, him and Xavier, just 2 games that we've come to know by this point of the season. So those 2 are tough ones. I think this week I want to give it to Hiram, just purely for the fact that I think he's been unlucky the past couple of weeks. And
except, are we willing to break our rules though?
I know, with the no win. I know it's a tough one.
I'm willing to go with him, because I think he's unlucky that he hasn't got a nomination yet, and I think he deserves it. Yeah,
it's more of a bending of the rules than a breaking, I think. Look, I think he has been so good for CJ and Adelaide, and
you absolutely bring him back if you're Adelaide, don't you?
Oh, you would definitely. He's certainly earned that spot on the roster, and you would definitely sign him again. So I wouldn't see that changing. He would get my nod this week.
Okay, Cody, let's take a bit of a break on Hoop 7's basketball hustle from ourselves for a little bit. We've been able to track down a special guest for this week. He's the man who started off this season as the co-host of Hoop 7's basketball hustle. He's moved on to some other things. He's a busy man right now, but he's still kind enough to be part of our family here. He's still providing his votes for the Damo Award as well, thanks to Everlast. And it's our pleasure to have Damian Martin back on the show. Okay, Damo, good to have you back with us here on the show. You're a favourite of ours. We still call you part of our family, but you've had a bit of a rough time. How are you travelling?
Yeah, no, COVID came through the household and my wife was the first one to test positive. And then on about day 4, because we're close contacts, obviously we're all in the same house together. But by day 4, my daughters and I were still negative, and I started to think, I'm going to get past this, and started to brag about it. And then boom, the evening of day 4, the night of day 4, all 3 of us tested positive, and my 2 daughters were pretty much asymptomatic. My wife had a few cold and flu-like symptoms, and yeah, karma came back to get me because I was the one that was getting the hot and cold shakes, waking up in the sweats, headaches, so on and so forth. So I haven't quite shaken it, but I am negative at the moment. Or negative now. So it was, 4 of us getting it at the same time, and 4 different examples of what COVID can do to you, I guess.
I hope you're through the worst of it now. Do we finally get to see you on our TV screens again this weekend, though?
Yes, Sean was fantastic. He managed to fill in for me the amount of times I was like, hey, Redditch, what are you doing tonight? I'm still in lockdown. So he was brilliant. So I'll be on tomorrow for the game against Adelaide, and then I'll also do, so now Sean is actually in lockdown. He's a close contact because his wife, Gretchen, has it. So hopefully Gretchen is asymptomatic and is totally fine, but they're all in lockdown. And as you know, with Redditch Academy, he has all his basketball camps. Yeah, he's got all his camps. So he will be a very busy man trying to get people to fill in all his camps and make sure there's people to take sign-ins, which his wife and daughter normally do, and then obviously the coaching, which he leads from. So yeah, poor Sean, it probably couldn't have come at a worse time when you consider what he does for a living. But I'll fill in for Shawnee on Saturday, which is also the 40th anniversary game where they're going to recognise the history of the club and the team they selected. So yeah, big weekend coming up for the Wildcats.
Now, Cody and myself couldn't help but notice how Mike Ellis has been trotted out again to celebrate this 40th anniversary game, and he's been put in the new uniforms, but they still couldn't have found a spot for him in the 40th anniversary team. We couldn't help but notice that.
Yeah, look, Mike's, regardless of whether he makes these teams or not, when you think of the Wildcats, you think of the Ellis family, and that's led by, obviously, Mike captaining the inaugural team. So, look, it's great that, Mike still is willing to go out there and promote the club. He still comes to every single home game and easily could have had his names in that 40th anniversary team, but he's a legend of the club. You just have to look up into the rafters and see his retired jersey and the respect he still receives from current players, or he talked to former teammates, and is just a big part of who we are today and more importantly where we began.
Absolutely. But those uniforms look nice, don't they? They're going to look good out on the court.
Yeah, I love the throwback round or the heritage round. I just think it's fantastic to, 1, recognise the history of each club, but 2, just going back to some of the old club colours and the logos. And I hope they bring back the short shorts one day. I say that now that I'm retired, because they've got these short shorts on display at the Wildcats office, and it's they're very, very revealing. I forgot just what those players in the first few years wore. It's pretty funny to think they were out there running around in what would be considered, even shorts by footy standards these days.
I remember going back about 10 years when we might have done the first heritage round, and we got Mike to put a pair of those short shorts back on, and he still loved them.
I know. Well, he's still in shape, so he's still pulling it off. But no, it's a great round that all the players really get behind. And most clubs, I dare say the Wildcats will be no different, usually bring in one of the retired players to talk about what the club means to them. One of the terminology we use at the Wildcats is bloodline, and just honouring the bloodline that obviously began way back with Mike Ellis and his teammate that got it all started 40 years ago.
Now, speaking of the TV coverage, we started off this season when we were hosting this show together, and we were making a big push to get Lousy on our TV screens, and it's finally happened. We finally got there.
I love it. I absolutely love it. He's doing a great job. He was always going to be a natural at it, so hopefully this is the first of many seasons to come with Lousy on the sideline in Cairns or wherever they need him, because I think he's doing a terrific job.
Did you have anything to do with it? Did you help get him on there?
Well, I like to think that obviously, Larry Kessler listens into the show and we didn't have to make any direct phone calls. He must just have tuned in and thought, yeah, let's get him on. That's my story and I'm sticking to it anyway.
I like it. That's the story I keep telling Lows as well. Speaking of people that we have on the show, Adam Gibson's another one, and I like to think that us getting back in touch with him for this show has helped you start up Pacific Sports Management alongside him as well.
Yeah, you're exactly right. I actually phoned him after we interviewed him, months ago. This going back to probably December, early January. And I gave him a call afterwards saying, look, I know you're still with South East Melbourne, but wondering what you're considering off the court or what you're currently involved in. And yeah, Pacific Sports Management have been involved in sports management, both for players as an agent and then commercially with different businesses and companies for 20-odd years. But they've focused on rugby league and they're one of their biggest in rugby league, probably the biggest, but they also branched out into the NFL about 5 years ago, and the co-founders, Chris and Governor, wanted to get into basketball, and they asked me if I'd oversee the expansion, so I've absolutely loved it, just getting back into junior basketball, with the national champs currently on. I remember my agent, he got in front of me when I was about a 16, 17-year-old. I was impressed by him. I didn't sign anything because obviously I was off to college and he was aware of that. So you don't want to break any rules, but if you can meet these kids and be a part of the journey, and I'm a huge advocate for going to college first and foremost. So, can't get anyone on paper, but just seeing where they're currently at as teenagers representing their states to hopefully being a part of the journey to when they're playing professionally, whether it's here or abroad or ultimately the NBA. So Gibbo's a big part of that expansion in the basketball. And we've got Solomon Detch and Damien Eves, who will be two of our agents here in the NBL, and then we'll announce shortly an NBA agent and a team in America as well. So yeah, great way to stay involved in the sport and just be a part of these talented kids' journeys and hopefully be able to offer some advice more than just securing contracts in a boardroom, trying to help them evolve and plan for the future on and off the court.
Oh, fantastic. And you made a nice segue there as well by bringing up the Under-18s National Championships right now. How good is it seeing Matty Knight coaching the WA country team?
Yeah, exactly right. He's been involved a couple of years now and he genuinely enjoys it. And imagine being a 15, 16, 17-year-old who probably went to some of Matty's game when he was dominating the NBL and now you get to pick his brain. And he's one of those guys that even though he was never loud, he was never really in the media whatsoever, but he's got a really good basketball IQ. So I hope he's able to articulate that and communicate it with the players he has, because regardless of the results they may get, he's going to improve these guys that he's coaching, because it's one thing to have a great career. It's another thing to have a high basketball IQ and pass that knowledge on, and I believe he'll be capable of doing it. So loving seeing what WA is doing, and obviously I'm a New South Welshman, so actually Metro just got pipped by Tassie the other day, but they started really well with a couple of wins over there. So yeah, the Nationals I think are some of the most fun basketball you can play growing up.
Oh, fantastic. Now, I don't know if you've had a chance to have a close look at this demo, but round 19 in the NBL, do you have any votes for us in the Damo Best Defensive Player Award?
Oh, look, it's hard to go past. They've got that trio in Melbourne right now, and they're doing some fantastic things. I love what Cleveland's doing. I know I've given Cleveland quite a few votes of late. They're the standouts right now. Sunday Detch is always solid, but what Italy in particular and Cleveland are doing, I look at, someone like a Jack White again, he's just consistently there, either trying to draw charges, contesting shots, blocking some shots. So I feel like there's a common theme week in, week out, and they're usually the guys. So I'll get you my 3, 2, 1. I just want to make sure I'm not selling anyone short, because you can get a little bit of a bias when you start focusing in on only a few because they do another great thing and then you give them votes, but then someone might have a particularly great week out of nowhere and you don't want to forget about them either.
No, without trying to prejudice your voting, I don't know if I've seen a better defensive performance than what Antonio's Cleveland delivered on Lamar Patterson on Saturday. So I don't want to complicate things for you, but gee, I don't think anyone's ever shut down Lamar quite like what he did.
No, I had Cleveland for 3 again regardless. I'm actually just waiting to watch a replay of Southeast as well, because I know that they probably haven't given many votes to Southeast. Not that matters, but I just want to watch their game before giving the final vote for this weekend.
No, fantastic. Just quickly, Sean's been doing his Player of the Year voting, and it's coming down to a very tight race with Bryce Cotton and Jalen Adams. If you had to split those two, which way would you go right now?
Well, right now, because they're on a 12-game winning streak, it is easy to get caught up in the hype of Jalen Adams. And he only had to watch, obviously the game against New Zealand, where he was 1 of 9 in the first half, but then still finishes as player of the game. And he was just fantastic in the second half. So his influence on the game and on that club is obviously the biggest reason why they won 12 consecutive games. So it's hard to go past Jalen. But what you've got to remember with Bryce, and this is no disrespect to Adams whatsoever, he is an absolute superstar and deserving of it if he wins it. But Bryce still does get guarded differently to any other player in the league because the focal point is get the ball out of his hands at all costs. So you see him faced with a lot more either double teams or hard shows because teams don't really want to switch because they saw what he did to, someone like New Zealand who did switch and he just isolated them at the top of the key and put on a special performance. Vic Law at the start of the year, I actually think he was almost not clear cut, but he would have been, number one there for a while. So it's easy to go by the last 2 or 3 months. Adams, deservingly so, is number one over that period of time. But Vic Law, Bryce Cotton, you got to consider those guys as well with how they've been all season. And Bryce, if you ask any defender, would probably say Bryce is the hardest guy to guard and the most unselfish scorer in the league. But take nothing away from Adams. So those are 1, 2, and 3 in my opinion. But with what Sydney are doing right now and where they came from to where they are once Adams returns, it's hard to go past him.
Yep, absolutely. Last thing, I'll get your thoughts on, Damo, and I'll let you go. The Wildcats, what have you made of their recent form, and do you feel like they can turn it on between now and the finals? And as Cody's talked about on the show the last couple of weeks, how much of a difference does Mitch Norton make when he comes back?
Yeah, look, I've just spoken about how good Jalen Adams is. I'm the most biased guy in the world, so I still think Bryce is the MVP of the league. And when you've got Bryce on your team, you're always a chance. Now, this team is more than just Bryce Cotton. I mentioned Vic Law, obviously Luke Travers, Jesse Wagstaff. All those guys are capable of winning a championship as is, but they have to all be at their best. And the person that brings them to playing their best style of basketball, in my opinion, is Mitch Norton, because he can be out on the floor and be like, okay, they're switching at the top when Bryce is involved, so let's get us into wire on-ball switches with the ball in his hands. Okay, I can see that Vic is on the post with a mismatch, let's roll it into him. He just really is the orchestra out there at the offensive end, but then he leads by example, and more importantly, leads with the pickup point defensively. And this is where they need to have their bread and butter come finals, because finals is a different beast, and they won't be able to rely on being the highest scoring team in the league, with 90-odd points a game. So he will initiate that. I think getting Fraser back, because Fraser is a good defender, I think getting Fraser back with all the turmoil that was the last few weeks between injury and, talk of John Brown and then not being able to get that deal done, he can just focus now on closing out the regular season well and getting some form going into finals. And I'll just be saying, hey, let's find that form at the defensive end, because that's where we're going to need you the most. Matty Hodgson's finally playing, his best basketball and showing what we knew he was all capable of. Luke Travers is a great defender. So you put those 4 guys out there with Bryce, who's a stealing machine, Jesse, who, draws more charges than anyone else in the league. But defensively that they have to improve, which they're capable of doing come finals, because like I said, it's a different beast in the finals, and they've shown they can score, but they've got to make sure that they're going to be able to consistently get stops, and that starts with Nordo.
Yep, excellent, Damo. I could easily have done a full episode with you. There's that much to talk about, but unfortunately, it's not your job anymore. But it's been great fun catching up with you, Damo. I'm glad you can still be involved in the show, and look forward to catching up with you again soon.
No, my pleasure. Good hearing from you, Pikey.
All right, Cody, let's take a little bit of a different look at things now. And the WNBL Grand Final, we previewed the rest of the series last week, and we were getting ready for Game 2 here in Perth. And boy, didn't that turn out to be a pretty dramatic evening at Bendat Basketball Centre. We talked about how in Game 1 the Lynx got to play things on their terms, and when it was a fast-paced game, when it was a high-scoring game, they looked really good. Yeah. First quarter in that Game 2 was on their terms. I think they put up 28 points, and they were looking very good, but the Melbourne Boomers have been the best defensive team all season, and for the rest of the series, really, they were able to slow the game down. They were able to play incredibly physical defence as well, and played the game on their terms for the rest of that Game 2, and then they ended up dominating Game 3. But just touching on Game 2, that finish, pretty dramatic. I think you were watching it live, Cody.
Absolutely.
What did you think?
That was an amazing game, an awesome game, and the disappointing thing is that I was fairly active on Twitter doing that, and it didn't seem like there was a whole lot of other people around watching it, which is unfortunate. So I'm hoping that there were lots of people watching because, man, that was just the fourth quarter alone was unreal.
Yep.
Just big play after big play by so many players, not just one or two. It was everyone. I thought it was a heck of a game, and right there to be won by the Lynx,
Yes.
and short free throw away from sending it to overtime, and you never know what happens in overtime. So
An amazing finish. I mean, Marina Mabry was the reason.
awesome.
She was the reason they were close enough.
Oh, yeah.
She hit some massive shots in that fourth quarter to keep them close. She doesn't lack any confidence, and rightfully so. I mean, when you've got the talents that she does. When she got fouled taking that three at the end, though, you've got to hit the free throws before you celebrate, don't you? She was celebrating that she got fouled, and then she couldn't make the third to send it into overtime. Have you been in that position before where you're happy that you get fouled, but you have to keep focused on the foul shots, don't you?
yeah, you do. I'm surprised that anyone was close enough to foul her. Just a silly reach.
Yep.
So made the ref call it, and it was definitely a foul watching the replays. So look, she stepped up. Those first two free throws were cash. Never looked like missing. That third one, she kind of hitched at the top of her shot. As soon as it left her hand, it looked short.
Yep.
I'm surprised there was no one in there to rebound.
I was at the game live, and Ryan Patrick had got his team to pull back, so they were back to prepare, assuming that she was going to make that shot and to avoid the Boomers getting a good look.
Right.
Because I think there was still point something of a second left. So they had pulled back deliberately to avoid the Boomers getting a shot off to try to win the game. So they did what the Bullets did earlier in the season and had banked on the free throw being made, and it wasn't made.
I've learned not to trust the TV coverage of time and score.
Yes.
But from memory, the TV coverage said it was only 0.2.
I think it was 0.2. Yeah.
That's not enough time to get a shot off anyway. So that was very confusing for me. Yeah. And you know what? The way it bounced off the rim,
could have got a tip in.
Absolutely. It was the perfect miss for a tip in. So look, a bit of a missed opportunity there, but Boomers just pulled that game back and just made it a grind, an absolute grind, and played on their terms, like you said, and got it done. Got it done in the end, and then went home to game 3, and really they never really looked like losing that one. Again, kind of just all over them, and made it very tough for them to score.
Yeah. I think it was just their physical defence. I mean, Marina Mabry and Jackie Young were the key to everything that the Lynx did this season, but they just got beat up. I mean, I think those 2 games in 4 days, they just had nothing left by that game on Saturday.
No, they didn't. And even in game 2, Young, you could see, was just knackered. All her shots were so short.
But I think it was just the physical defence that was played on her.
Absolutely, and that's what would have been on the scout. Tough all year. So you just want to grind them down. That's what they did. Yep. And like you said, best defensive team all year, and they showed that in those last 2 games for sure.
Lindsay Allen was grand final MVP, especially in that game too. She could do anything she wanted, and her mid-range game was nice to watch. But the person I want to get your thoughts on is Kayla George, because she's now a 4-time championship winner, one of the greats of Australian basketball. Obviously, a long-time Australian opal. She was massive in that win too. Oh, she was awesome, and she's one of those energy players as well. She had sparks or bits of the game where her shot probably wasn't falling. And honestly, for me, the best part of this series was her post-game interview with me and Husway after the game too. Yep.
So that was awesome, and everyone got to see Kayla and how she is away from the court, and she's very fiery and up-tempo kind of a person. And no, look, she's an amazing player, and she's proven, she's definitely one of the greats that's been around the league for a while now.
I think the action on court was fantastic, and I think it was a really high-quality WNBL season overall, but there's some concerns about the way the league's run right now, I think, and it just doesn't seem to be put in front of enough people to see it right now. I mean, probably a discussion that will take longer than 60 seconds, but I mean, what do you think needs to be done to raise the profile of it a little bit to to bring it up to something similar to where the NBL is, because right now it's unfortunately just a step below.
Yeah, and look, the talent's there. Across the board, the talent's there. I mean, you just have to look at the grand final series to see that. But yeah, it's trying to get it and push it onto people to watch it, really. And whether that's having it as a precursor to NBL games or what, I understand that you want to separate the leagues. You know, the NBA and the WNBA completely separate.
Yeah.
But just little things that, you know, you can't schedule a grand final game the same night as local NBL teams playing and at the same time.
Yeah.
That can't happen.
You don't want to force people to choose.
No,
because
absolutely not.
The unfortunate reality is they might not choose the WNBL.
Well, and they won't, and it's been proven. You know, there's a couple games, so it's frustrating. But I'm hoping that the league looks at that a bit and makes adjustments next season. And I think the talent's going to be just as good.
Yep.
So hopefully, lots more people tune in.
You can't do this again because it was just the circumstances, but last year actually turned out well, where they got to play in the North Queensland hub, and they got their season finished before the NBL even started, and they were actually able to get a lot of people watching as a result. But unfortunately, you probably can't do that again. But it did turn out well in that sense, and showed that if it's given some clean air, people will tune in.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, it's tough. It's kind of run at the perfect time of the year where we can get those WNBA girls come down and play. So, yeah, you're right. You probably can't do that again and go play it in the hub and get it over with before the NBL season. But you've got to make adjustments. And, you know, that's just the reality. If you want that talent here, then you've got to run it when you do, when it is run now. So, tough one. Lots of decisions to be made, I think, this off-season.
Also, Cody, before we get to round 20 in the NBL 1 West season got underway last week.
It did.
I don't think you gave away on the show, but we knew you weren't going to play on Friday night, but you were there cheering your Warwick Senators on, and you almost stole it against the Perry Lakes Hawks. It was a pretty good game, and across the board there was some pretty exciting action. What did you make of your team's performance and what you might have seen from some of the other teams? Yeah,
and look, when we did the show, I thought I'd still had a chance to play, for sure, and it wasn't till probably the day of the game that we'd put it away and said, no, not tonight. So, which is unfortunate, and you know, I hate sitting there and watching when I can't be involved. And
I remember your dad having to force you to sit out a couple of games when it was probably when you were just fresh off the grand final season, and you wanted to come back and play straight away, and he just had to tell you just sit out for a week or two.
Yeah, and that's tough. That's tough to do. We played really well, considering, you know, we had a couple outs, and you know, we had CD, who was only probably a week out of COVID. You had Brian Michaels, who...
How many times had he trained with you?
4 or 5, I think. So, and yeah, look, we had
he still put up, what, 39 points, was
37.
it? 37. Yeah.
I did say that I thought he or CD might have to put up 40 for us to win, and he puts up 37 and we lose by 2. So, you know, I was fairly accurate. But Corbs was awesome. He had a very typical Corbin Rowe game. I think he had 8 and 8. And led the charge defensively, and I think that's where we brought ourselves back into the game in the second half. First half, we kind of let Perry Lakes run on us and hit the open shooters and all that sort of stuff, and just kind of we weren't really sticking to our game plan and our scout. So, but look, man, I thought, especially the second half, I thought we were unreal. And defensively is where we turned the game, and obviously some fairly handy offensive players on our roster that helped drag us through it. And lots of the young guys stepped up really well, which is very promising. Across the rest of the league, look, there's so much talent, man. It's crazy.
I want to get your thoughts on Rockingham, because I watched some of their game on Saturday night, and there was times when on the floor at one time they had Tom Jervis, Greg Heyer, Devondrick Walker, and Marshall Nelson, and Ryan Godfrey, who might not have played NBL, but he's been a grade of this league. It's not a bad collection.
It's fairly good 5 right there, right? And yeah, and like I said, it's going to take some teams some time to get into the rhythm of things. Not a whole lot of preseason games were played this year due to COVID and all that. And I'm sure lots of teams have been hit by COVID as well. So you don't know how players are going to respond to that and how long it's going to take you to come back. But there is some certainly some talent around the league this year.
It's the traditional Easter Thursday round this week as well.
Yep.
You any chance to get out there?
I think so. So
Who have you got?
we play Redbacks. At their place,
Bit of revenge
I believe.
on your minds.
Yeah, for sure. No, look, they've added some key pieces to their squad, and they'll probably have Gatorna back once the NBL season's done. So that's another big piece that they'll have to.
He'll be at RSA Arena at the same time you play.
Yeah, exactly. So they're tough. And we're just going to take baby steps right now. So. We're not sure if Trig's going to be allowed to coach.
He won't on Thursday. He'll be needed elsewhere on Thursday anyway. But hopefully he's beyond that. Hopefully he will be able to.
Fingers crossed. And we don't want to do anything that's going to hinder anything he does with the Cats.
Yeah.
So that's a tough.
But
one.
how did Charlie go?
He was awesome. And pacing up and down the sidelines like a madman he is, and that's great because it gets you involved. The coaching staff was really good, and they have been really good all pre-season.
All right, let's get into round 20 in the NBL, Cody, and. It couldn't possibly start off any better. Thursday night in Wollongong, Illawarra Hawks on a 6-game winning streak, Sydney Kings on an 11-game winning streak. They're pretty much fighting for home court advantage in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Jeez, what do you think?
Huge game. That's awesome. I reckon that the Hawks end the streak. I reckon they get it done. Sydney, a couple of players that didn't play too well this weekend, like we said. But look, I don't expect that to keep happening. But I do think the Hawks end the streak this week.
Second up on Thursday night, the traditional rivals, Perth Wildcats and the Adelaide 36ers.
Yeah, always a good game. That rivalry has been around for as long as I can remember. And when I was going
40
to
years,
games,
yeah.
So, and it's the 40th year anniversary game. So, that'll be a big one. I think the Cats certainly get up for that one.
Just touching on that quickly, without beating a dead horse, couldn't help but notice that the promotional imagery of the 40th anniversary had
guess who?
Had guess who, and he still couldn't have found a spot in the 40th anniversary team, but you still used him to promote the 40th anniversary.
For sure. And that certainly wasn't lost on me by any stretch. But that's those uniforms. Look cool.
Look nice, didn't they?
Really
the yellow was very nice, yeah.
And those shorts with the old logo on them. Amazing. Need to try and get myself a pair of those ones, I think.
Well, your dad had a pair on.
Did
he take them home with him?
I have no idea. Might have to steal them off him.
Knowing the Wildcats, they probably still would have made him pay. Friday night, Cody. Tasmania JackJumpers just have to win this game to stay any chance. But it'll be tricky against the New Zealand Breakers.
Yep. Tough game. But I think JackJumpers keep their hopes alive. I do think they go out and get that one.
A couple of games on Saturday. First up, Melbourne United and the Brisbane Bullets. Before Monday night, I would have been concerned about the Bullets, but they showed some better signs coming off that win in Adelaide.
They did. They definitely did. And I'm not sure what Franks is going to do, if he's going to play or not. But I think, again, that's something that they can build on, even if he doesn't play. But Melbourne, they're just going to, I think, flex a muscle again and really try to solidify that top spot.
This one I am a little bit concerned about too, because Adam Ford didn't like what he saw in a 29-point loss at home to Melbourne from the Taipans, and now they come to Perth to play on Saturday night.
Yeah, big one. And like we mentioned earlier, I can't see Machado playing again this season, and they're a different team without him. They got McCall back in the lineup, which is good, but he's certainly no Machado. So I think the Cats get that one done as well.
Sunday, another important one for the JackJumpers, but the South East Melbourne Phoenix, they'll at least want to finish the season on a high. So this is a tricky one too. It is,
and an opportunity for the Phoenix to play, the spoilers. Look, I think they'll get up and about for that game and try to prove a point that they definitely want to finish ahead of the team that's just come into the league.
Good point.
And they're going to do all they can, I think. Toss of the coin on that one, though, man. I'm not 100% sure. It's in Melbourne, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so I'm probably going to go with Phoenix.
Next up on Sunday, Sydney Kings, they can't afford a slip-up as they try to get home court advantage at home to the 36ers, who will be just fresh off playing in Perth on Thursday. Yeah, and
the Kings will be just down the road
on
Thursday, so a lot less travel, get to sleep in their own beds again, which would be good. I think they come out and get it done against Adelaide. I just think they've got too many weapons.
Pick your margin in this final one, Cody. Monday night, Melbourne United at home to the Taipans.
Yeah, look, it's jeez. I don't think it's going to be a massive margin.
Mm-hmm.
I think 40's going to get his boys, back and playing with some gusto. So, look, United get it done, but I think Cairns at least put up a fight for sure now.
All right, we'll come back next week and see how that all played out, Cody. We've been through a lot again this week.
Yep.
A lot happening in the NBL. There was a lot in the WNBL, a lot in the NBL 1 to get through as well. So we'll be back with all of that again next week as well. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you to Hoop 7 for making it possible. And also Matty Knight, our good friend here, thanks to Tab Touch, doing some good things with his WA country team right now at the National Championships. So good luck for the rest of the tournament to Matty, and we'll catch up with him as soon as we can again for another Tab Touch preview. But I'll wrap it up now for this week, Cody, and get your final thoughts for this week's show.
Yeah, look, obviously jam-packed show again, mate. Lots going on and still lots to happen. Hoping teams can, the top 4 teams can reach finals unscathed. So we have a rip-roarer of a final series all round.